Hi, I'm Maddie Herring. I'm the daughter of Teresa, who is the daughter of Kathy Snider. And we've been wanting to do an interview with Kathy for a while because we want to know more about her life and everything that she's had. And we're very grateful to have this experience and learn more about everything that she's been through in her 87 years. So with that, I'll introduce Kathy Snider.
Hi. Thank you, Maddie. I'm Kathy, and I was born Kathleen Wenzel Snider in December the 6th, 1931, in Clovis, New Mexico. Well, actually, it was 26 miles northwest of Clovis on a little farm. And fortunately, there was a doctor that was willing to come all that way. And then when I was about 6, we moved into the big city of Clovis, New Mexico. And Clovis was a railroad town. The Santa Fe Railroad had their big repair shop there. And eventually my dad got a job there. And I lived in a house with my 3 older brothers. It was Dick and Pat and Joe. And my sister, she was just a year and a half older, Mary Lou, and my younger sister, Becky. And that was the family that moved into town in 1936, I think it was. And my 2 younger brothers, Jim and Tom, were born in 1938 and 1940.
Just talk to Maddie.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. That's fine. Just talk
I
to
was
Maddie.
confused.
No worries.
Yeah.
So, you're living in Bremerton today, so what year
Yes.
did you move to Bremerton?
In 1942.
Okay. And now that you live here in your retirement, in your old age, how many kids do you have?
I have 7 children.
And how many grandkids do you know?
I have 25 grandchildren.
What about great-grandkids? Here's the
I
test.
believe I have 33 great-grandchildren and 3 more that are due this next few months.
Wow, how exciting.
Yeah, very.
We have the best family ever. Thank you, Grandma. Okay, so we want to get some background on your parents. You said your dad worked on the railroad, right?
Yeah.
And what about your mom?
My mom they both grew up in Kansas, my mom and dad. They were both born there and grew up there. And my mom was a school teacher when she was young, before she was married. She taught school for 8 years, and my dad was a farmer. And at that time, farming was not very successful due to the depression and the, what did they call it?
Was it the Dust Bowl?
Dust Bowl, yes. That just wiped out that area. And so he was fortunate to get a job on the railroad, and he worked for the railroad for 5 years before we moved to Bremerton in 42.
So do you remember any of the dust storms or anything like that at the time?
I remember what we had to do. We had, well, our plates and everything got covered with dust when there was, a dust storm come up. And we had these special things that we'd try to block out. They were like little bars of sand that we put against the wall, the door stops. And I remember that, but I was pretty young, because that happened. The Dust Bowl was like in the 30s, mid-30s.
Uh-huh.
And by the time I was 10 years old, I think, in 41, that wasn't so severe.
Right.
But,
So what prompted the move up north to Bremerton?
well, the World War II.
Oh, okay.
My dad taught himself how to weld because they needed welders in the shipyards. And he was looking to get a job in Long Beach, California, but he got to Long Beach shipyard and they said they needed more welders in Bremerton. And so he just came all the way up to Bremerton and stayed here for a month until he got settled. And we followed him, which was quite a chore. My mom driving all 8 of us kids in a panel wagon. Took 8 days for us to drive from Clovis to Bremerton.
And what kind of car?
It was a van. It was an old flour truck. I mean, a florist van.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they remodeled and cut windows in it for us to look out and,
That was the family car, huh?
yeah.
Wow.
Well, that was just for this trip.
Just for the trip?
Yeah.
Okay. So then once you moved here, did you guys have a house?
Well, actually, there wasn't a house. We had a hard time finding any place to live. In fact, it was pretty pitiful. The first place we got was through the charity of one of the parishioners here that had a house that he had already rented out to individuals. But he let us have 1 bedroom, I think maybe 2 bedrooms and a kitchen for all 8 of us. And my brother slept in the van. And that went on for, I'd say, maybe 2 months, 3 months. And that was on 5th and Pacific, right near in downtown Bremerton. And I could walk to the Catholic school and to church from there. And then they were building World War II houses like crazy around here. And one of the projects, they called them the projects, and they finally got one, and we got a 3-bedroom, and we lived in that for another 6 months, and then I think my folks bought a place out by Belfair, on the old Belfair Highway. And my dad added a couple of rooms to that, it was just a 3-room house.
Mm-hmm.
And my dad added a couple of rooms to that in the summertime. And we lived there for probably another 2 years. And then we moved back into Bremerton, and then the war was over.
Okay.
And we got a house right on 6th and Broadway in Bremerton. We lived there till I was a year out of high school when I was still living there.
Okay.
So I just walked to Bremerton High School.
So I think I remember you telling me that you remember the day that Pearl Harbor was bombed. Is that right? Or you remember?
I remember the day because I'd never heard of this before. Newspaper boys walking up and down the street hollering extra. This was in Clovis.
Oh, okay.
In 41.
Right.
And we didn't know but we could tell all the adults. I mean, when you're 10 years old, you don't know what's going on.
Right.
I didn't know.
Right.
Have any idea. And they were all listening to the radio, and they were all talking, and they were all, you knew it was something big.
Yeah.
And then my brothers, right away, they got jobs. There was an airport there, and they started hiring, had military people coming already,
Right.
That's 6 months from December 41 till we left in the summer of 42. The military came into Clovis like you wouldn't believe. They had an airport there
Right.
beforehand, and I had one of my older brothers. Can you imagine a 15, 16-year-old kid packing parachutes?
Oh my goodness.
That was his job.
It's a lot of trust.
People did a lot of things, unbelievable.
Yeah.
And then my 13-year-old brother was fixing hamburgers.
Oh,
in
wow.
a hamburger
Okay.
stand. Yeah, and that was the way it was during the war the whole time. People did everything.
Everybody had to pitch in.
Everybody did anything and everything to help, and you were constantly aware that was primary
Right.
in your mind.
So-
Was the war effort.
Did you ever do anything for the war effort?
Babysat.
You babysat?
I was a champion babysitter, and so was my sisters. There's still people around here that we babysat for.
That's so funny.
My sister babysat, well, I did too, for Deacon Bill at church.
Wow.
He doesn't remember me, but he was just a baby. But
Yeah.
he remembered my younger sister babysitting for him. And that's what we did. We did what we could. And my sister, she was just a year and a half older than I. And she managed to cook for the priests because the priests couldn't find people to do it. She
Huh.
would fix breakfast for the priests.
Okay.
We'd drive in from Belfair, and we'd have to come in early because my dad had to get to work.
Uh-huh.
And so we'd come in early with him,
Uh-huh.
and my sister would go over and cook breakfast for the But she was the most capable person you ever saw in your life.
And this is at Star of the Sea in Berlin.
Yeah, Star to Sea, and then we all went to Star to Sea. We go to mass every day because we
You're
got
there.
in there so early.
Yeah,
And they had a lot of priests in that house because, well, they had a lot of priests at that time, like 3 or
Right.
4, and then they'd have chaplains off the ships and
Okay.
things like that. So there were a lot of people to cook for.
yeah,
And everybody else had a job. I mean,
Yeah.
if you were capable. All the women went to work.
uh-huh.
They were women working welders and
Really?
oh yeah,
Oh, wow.
oh yeah, they did all that sort of thing. If you were capable and could be trained, you did all that work. And they made more money that way too.
So what about Grandma Wenzel? Did she ever?
She went to work.
Oh, okay.
She went to work. She worked in the cafeterias in the shipyard.
And then what about your brothers? Did they join the war effort?
They were, they were still in high school. My oldest brother, my 3 oldest brothers, they were in high school, all 3 of them. And they only went half days to school. The
Okay,
rest of the day they would work.
okay,
They'd have jobs. Most of the jobs were in the shipyard.
yeah,
They'd have all kinds of jobs for kids.
right.
And the one brother, he was especially smart. He had an apprenticeship
Mhm.
when he was only 15 or 16. He worked 8 hours in the shipyard on the apprenticeship and then went to go to 4 hours of school in the morning.
Wow,
And yeah, when he got out of high school, he had his credentials to be the ship fitter.
so let's move on from your family and talk a little bit about Grandpa Snider. So he was growing up on a farm out in Kansas, right?
Right, yeah.
So where was he from?
He was born in, I think he was born in Logan, Kansas, which is western Kansas, and northwestern Kansas, and it's a very sparsely populated area, a lot of small little towns. And most everybody were wheat farmers around there, and the population of Logan, I think when he was born, was around 1,000, 900 to 1,000.
Okay.
And of course, everybody knows everybody. And his mother was working, and he stayed from the time he was probably a year old. He stayed with a family in Logan that took care of him, and his mother would come home on the weekends
Okay.
until he was probably, well, till she married his stepdad.
Because she was a single mom, right?
Yeah, she was a single mom. Her husband, Lee's dad, had some problems. And he was incarcerated for a couple of years.
Right,
And then he never came back to Logan
Right.
again after he got out and everything. And I don't think he was financially supporting.
Right.
But anyway, when his mom got married, then he moved to the farm,
okay.
and this family that had been helping him. And the town is so good; they're very supportive of anybody in a situation like that.
Right,
So he was very lucky to have everybody knew.
a good
And
community.
his nickname was, did you know his nickname was Cork?
I heard that,
Corky.
yes.
He looked like a comic character in the comics.
Named
And
Corky.
everybody called him Corky, and they still, to this day, a lot of people call him Cork,
That's
when they're
too
talking
funny.
about him, Cork.
Wow. So I know Grandpa had quite a walk to school, isn't that right?
Well, yeah, when he was living on the farm, it was 3 miles to the school. It was one of those one-room schoolhouses
Yeah,
that, like, where my mom taught, and it was 3 miles to the school. And I think they had about 6 or 7 students that came.
wow.
And when he graduated from the 8th grade, they closed the school because there was nobody left to go to school there.
Wow.
And he didn't have to walk the 3 miles. His stepdad, Floyd, gave him a horse to ride,
Oh, okay.
a little pony.
So
So he had a horse he could ride to school. And then, but he wanted a bicycle, so later on, but he thought it would be better than, I can't imagine. But he wanted the bicycle rather than riding the horse.
That's too funny. So,
But
how-
what was the joy about living out there he was a great reader.
Oh, okay.
He read all the time because they didn't have, and of course they didn't have TV.
Right. No
They had
other.
very little radio,
Yeah.
and whatever was on radio wasn't that good. And
Yeah.
so what do? You read. And he was a reader. He was very well read.
So how did he get out of Logan?
Well, what happened when he, after the 8th grade, he moved to Logan,
Okay.
back to Logan to finish high school.
Right.
He stayed with the same family that he
Wow.
was with before until he graduated from high school.
Uh-huh.
And he worked in a restaurant there after school, which helped pay for his tuition. And then he was a very good athlete, you know.
Football, right?
Football, but mostly basketball. He was a
Okay.
better basketball player. Yeah. Then when he got a job when he graduated from high school for a company that was building roads. And then come fall and winter, they weren't building roads anymore. And he
Right.
didn't have a job. So two of his buddies decided they'd go enlist in the service. So this was 1949, graduated from high school in 49. So that winter, 49, he went to Denver and they enlisted in the Marine Corps because that was the only office open. Others were closed. And then he came home and he had to wait till February to go.
Okay.
And then he went off, and that was in 1950. He went to is it called Mare Island in San Diego?
Uh-huh.
Well, no, it isn't Mare Island, it's something else. But anyway, he went in San Diego is where he did his boot training. He came home in June, and he went back, you know, and then that's when the Korean War started.
Okay.
And he was Korean War thing started in July, sometime in July.
Okay.
And on August the 6th, he was on a ship going to Korea.
Wow.
And he was there, I think he was in what they call the Incheon landing. That was the big push that they did to drive the North Koreans out of South Korea. And they had a landing there, and he was in the second wave that went on, and he was wounded there. And they took him off the beach onto a hospital ship, and they performed whatever operation they did. They still don't have any records of it, but
Oh, really?
evidently he had shrapnel in his stomach.
Okay.
He had shrapnel scars all over his back and his stomach and whatnot. And he was, then he slowly moved back to the States. I think he went from the hospital ship to Japan, and then from Japan to Hawaii, and then from Hawaii to California. And what's the hospital there? That's Mare Island where he went to. He had a hospital there for him, the Naval Hospital.
Was it North Island in California?
What?
Was it North Island in San Diego?
Where he did boot camp?
Yeah, in San Diego, would it be North Island?
I don't know what I would know it if I heard it.
Or Camp Pendleton, maybe?
Camp Pendleton.
Camp Pendleton.
That's it. Like I know it, but I can't remember those things. I'm not very good at remembering names of anything. But his parents were really great. They were so broken-hearted. They came out to see him when he was in the hospital.
California? Oh, okay.
Yeah, and then he was, after he recovered, he only weighed about 120 pounds.
How
when he
tall
got out
was
of the
Grandpa?
hospital. He was 6 foot tall.
Wow.
And when he got out of the hospital, he only weighed about 120 pounds, something like that. Then he went home for a month, back to Kansas, and that town is so good to him. Those little towns, they just...
Yeah, take care of
and
their
his-
own.
And he was such a good student in school. He was valedictorian of his high school class.
Oh, wow.
And, they just admired how much he had done with his,
Right.
and so he was very highly thought of there in Logan. And then they sent him, I think he had applied for Fort Riley. He wanted to go to Fort Riley, Kansas. That's where he wanted to go, which was closer to home.
Uh-huh.
They sent him to Bremerton, Washington. He still had 3 more years of his enlistment.
Oh, okay.
He'd only spent 1 year,
Oh, poor guy.
and so he spent 3 years in Bremerton to finish his enlistment. And that's where he met me, in
Okay.
Bremerton. He was, well, I guess everybody knows that that's what guys do. They go to the bar
Uh-huh.
and they meet other people, and he met some very good friends of mine that I had known all my life, you know, growing up at the school, and they seemed to like Lee a lot, so they invited him to one of our parties, and that's how I met him the first time, was when my friends, they were all guys,
Yeah,
but girls didn't go to bars back then.
right, yeah.
That wasn't, that, you just didn't do that, even if you were of age, you didn't go to bars.
Uh-huh.
But they'd come home and tell us stories about the new acquaintances and
Uh-huh.
stuff. And I think my friends really respected him because he had done his service in the,
Yeah,
you know, and served his country, and they
right.
admired him for that.
Okay.
We're gonna stop, take a break.